Now it's the right time to come up. Okay. Hello.
Welcome, everyone, to tonight's program. It is my pleasure. I'm Marissa Meyer, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight with Britt Morin, the founder and CEO of Brit & Co. And as many of you know, Brit & Co. is an incredibly popular digital media company focused on DIY and all things creative. But I have the distinct pleasure of knowing Brit and being friends with Brit before she was Brit, before she was the founder,
managing
before
Brit.
she was the media brand and everything else. And so it's a really, I think, a special opportunity for us to have a conversation about her path, her journey, how she's ended up here, her passions along the way. But it's been amazing to be a witness to Brit's rise and all of your success. And so I'm really thrilled to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you. I felt like I should be interviewing her, by the way. So maybe I'll throw some questions back her way.
So we're going to cover a wide gamut, and we'll get to audience questions later tonight. But I wanted to really get a sense of, how did you end up here? So I really actually kind of want to start with the personal, going back. You grew up in Texas.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
What was the path that brought you to Silicon Valley?
Yeah. So, I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. And I was one of the fortunate or unfortunate, I guess, that grew up in the 80s and early 90s. And so if you remember all the way back to that period, there wasn't an internet. And we used to have to get creative around the house when our parents were working. And in my generation, largely both parents did work. So I was at home a lot by myself. And when I wasn't absorbing Saved by the Bell and Full House, I was figuring out what I could make and what I could do. And I would just tinker around. I broke a lot of things, including my mom's sewing machine when I was trying to figure out how to use the needles. I burnt a lot of things on the stove and on myself. But I was just learning how to make and how to build. And I used to love making all my friends presents and plan their birthday parties. Their parents would call me to plan their parties. So I was that girl. I was Girl Scout, all that stuff. And then I turned 13 or so, and the internet was starting to become a thing. I was online all the time. I had, an AIM profile with the windows everywhere, and I was fascinated with technology. And so I put a lot of the maker stuff by the wayside and decided I wanted to learn how to code. And so in high school, I took AP computer science classes. I was, obsessed with the idea that this could change the world. And ultimately, I actually chose my college based on where I could graduate earliest so that I could move straight to Silicon Valley. And my friends thought I was crazy because who wouldn't want to spend 4 years in college partying and doing all the things that you do? But I was like, I'm done. I was putting myself through college. Like, why would I spend extra money? So I tested out of almost 2 years of school. I went to the University of Texas because the credits transferred the best being in Texas. Yeah, thank you. Got two. That's it. Come on. And then I moved out here when I was 20, and I couldn't even drink yet. But I started working with Apple a little bit, and it was in the iTunes group when it was just music, and it was still a little hard to sell iPods to people. There was no phone. Steve Jobs lied to me, by the way. I asked him, are we making a phone? And at an all hands, and he said, we would never want to compromise the quality of a camera, an iPod, and a telephone in one device. 6 months later, we released the iPhone. So it was a fun period to be there. And then I got called by a recruiter at Google and applied and ended up joining in the Google Maps team at first. And in that day, you weren't there yet, but driving directions was a big feature launch, and Street View was a big feature launch. And I remember when we made Google Maps for mobile, which when you saw the blue dot that triangulated your location, we were like all freaking out in the product review meeting. And so it was a cool time period to work on Google Maps. We ultimately beat MapQuest, which is a big deal. And then I remember talking to Marissa, by the way, because I had an option to go join this new team called Android, or to go work on the search team and to work on products like iGoogle and other types of things. And Marissa actually actually, gave me advice that Android was cool. It was a lot of like really interesting things happening with mobile, but search was the Bible of Google, and like why not go learn that world? And there are so many things you could do with those products. And so I did. I followed her advice. I went to that team, had a lot of fun, and then ultimately I got asked to join the YouTube team after we acquired that within Google, and to join a very small team within YouTube that was launching a product called Google TV. And Google TV has now evolved into Chromecast, if you know that, but it's sort of similar to Apple TV where, we were putting internet-connected devices into people's living rooms. And so Google made the software, and we worked with hardware manufacturers like Samsung and Logitech and Sony to build the TVs and the boxes. And that was like my first foray into media at that point, because I had to, in building the product and the user experience, had to go meet all of the different content networks, the cable networks, ABC, Fox, et cetera, and basically say, like, can you give us your content? Could we put it on Google TV? And like 95% of them said no. Why would we do that? We are locked in cable and operator contracts for 5 more years. We couldn't even try if we wanted to. We want paywalls in front of every single thing, which was a terrible user experience. Or we don't have any engineers. We don't even know what this means, like what you're talking about. It's like all a different language to us. And so I was shocked because these media companies were 100 years old, had no idea what was about to happen with technology. And of course, within the YouTube ecosystem, teenagers in their bedrooms were making millions of dollars with like no cost, just like a camera on their computer, and amassing millions of followers. And with the rise of social media, it was all about the human brands. It was, you wanted to follow people on YouTube. You didn't want to follow like Kraft and like get macaroni ads. You wanted to like follow a person who is a chef and like sometimes made macaroni. And so I took that all away, and I was only 25 at this point, by the way, and I was like, oh my gosh, media is about to get totally disrupted. This is fascinating. So I decided to leave Google, and I didn't know what I was going to do. They were like, "Why are you leaving?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm feeling called to do something else, to start a company, and I'm going to take 6 months off and figure out what kinds of things I'm most interested in." And I've always loved that phrase. It's kind of corny, but like, live every day following what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. And so I didn't schedule anything. I decided to just see what would happen if I had no schedule. And I ended up joining this place called Tech Shop, which was like a gym for making things. It was until recently based down in Soma. And literally for $99 a month, you can come in anytime and play with 3D printers and laser cutters and sewing machines and all kinds of cool things. And I was just having a field day because it was like anything I could think of in my head, jewelry, home decor, whatever, I could press a button, I could download on a computer, like make some CAD configurations, which I didn't even really know CAD, but I sort of figured it out. Press a button and it like exported in real life on a 3D printer. And everyone around me was a guy. Like literally they were making Star Wars figurines on the 3D printers, and I was making jewelry. And it was like disgusting. It was like white walls and kind of boring. I was like, oh, this is lame. And all my girlfriends would see all the stuff I was making. They were like, holy crap, how'd you do that? That's so amazing. And Pinterest had just launched. And at the time, it was young women just like pinning crafts and recipes and home decor ideas. And they would tell me this one thing every time they saw me. And I showed them my latest creative thing I was doing. And they would say, I wish I could do that, but I'm not creative. And it bothered me because I started hearing this over and over again. And then it dawned on me that this is the first generation of women, women in their 20s and early 30s, who didn't grow up with a mom who was at home to teach them how to do this stuff. She didn't grow up with home ec classes and shop classes. She did grow up with computers and technology, and she now is part of the generation where it's okay to be an executive by day and go home and want to learn how to paint by night. And so it sort of felt like Martha Stewart needed to be reimagined for this generation. And if Martha were starting today, I think that it wouldn't just be about one person who is the master of 1,000 things. Like social media, and going back to that YouTube analogy, has made it clear that there are 1,000 people who are the experts at 1,000 things. And so Brit & Co. became the idea of Brit and community. And yes, it's a human-led brand, and we could leverage social media and digital media to grow that brand. And I had never been on camera before, and I was freaked out about it, but like I was the girl I wanted to target, so why not put myself in there and make it authentic? And the Co. was like this amazing group of women who were interior designers and photographers and painters and coders and 3D designers. And so fast forward 6 years, sorry, it's a long story, but we have now become one of the top destinations for millennial women online. We reach over 175 million women every month. We have become the top publisher on Pinterest, ironically, after all this time. We have also created a multifaceted business, so it's not just media. We learned that women actually fundamentally don't know these skills. They didn't take home ec class, so we've launched an online learning part of our business. We have over 100 courses that women pay to take, ranging from coding to calligraphy and everything in between. We sell products in Target stores nationwide. We've done 4 product lines now, giving women the tools to do and make all these things. And we host really big offline events because we believe in this, the power of communities coming together, especially communities of women who can help each other, who want to learn from each other, who want to have a fun time. And so that's become a big business for us as well. So I'm sorry that was long, but that's the story.
So I think one theme across that story is that you've taken a lot of big leaps, moving from Apple to Google, even the projects within Google, and then the big leap to start your own company. How do you know when making those big leaps is a good idea?
Well, at the time when I was 25, leaving Google and sort of giving my notice, and they were asking me, like, are you sure you're at the number one company in the world? I felt like at that point, what did I have to lose? I had put enough money aside that I could try something for 6 months or so and bootstrap it. And if it didn't work, I could join Google. They literally told me you can come back when you want to. So I was like, I could go back to Google. I didn't have kids at the time. I was just getting married, and my husband's right here, FYI. He's the one guy in here. There's just kidding. There's 3 more of you. And so it was what do I have to lose? And so I think that was, the biggest leap. However, I did have to be convinced. And I think that this is where women are not, are a little bit more risk averse in starting companies because there is so much more to lose. And we always think about all the different things that could go wrong and instead of just going for it. And so I had to have some close friends and my husband sort of tell me this is what you're meant to be doing. Are you this is a big problem. You're good at it. All this stuff, your whole life story has evolved to this point. And so it took me some time, and I was about to start a different startup actually, and I had to break up with my co-founder, Pam Fox, in order to do it. So that was a big leap. And then raising venture capital is a leap every time you do it because you're literally selling pieces of your business to other people. I think being an entrepreneur is a series of micro leaps every single day. You're sort of betting on different types of strategies and people that will make you win. And so the biggest leap was deciding to do it, and there's been all kinds of leaps since then.
Sure, and thinking about those leaps, we had one breakfast, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was one breakfast when Brit was changing ideas from that original, I think it was sort of more a health-focused startup to ultimately what became Brit & Co. And I actually was really struck because I still remember one thing that you said during that breakfast, where I was like, well, why are you changing gears? Have you really given the first idea enough time? And Brit you were really honest, and you said, I just felt myself losing passion for it. And I thought that was actually really insightful to say, wait, it's got to be scary to say, wait, I've got this company, but I'm losing passion for it. What do I do with that? And to say, okay, well, I'm going to follow that and actually let it fuel something new, bigger, more exciting. What were some of the other challenges in the early day of Brit & Co? Obviously, you talked a little bit about funding, but there had to have been other hurdles as you were getting the different ideas started.
Yeah, because I came out of the tech industry, even though digital media is considered tech, I actually, my early strategy was not to go deep on media and content necessarily. It was actually to build up enough content that I could accrue an audience that would care, and then create apps. And this is back in like the app, like when apps were a big deal. But I would have an app that was a cooking app, and then an app that was a home decor type of app, and a wedding. We made a wedding app, and so we would sort of use that centralized content to deflect people into the funnels to download those apps, and it wasn't working. We had made the wedding app, and some people were using it, but really they just wanted more content, and I didn't know anything about making content really, and so I didn't know the difference between like an editorial director and a managing editor and all those different things. So I had to study and learn, and I mean literally trying to have coffees with people to ask them questions, Googling words when people would say them in a conversation, and I acted like I knew what they were talking about. And so that was one thing that just didn't work. And another thing that didn't work, we started posting all these tutorials for projects and ideas and things like that. And the women got really excited and they wanted to try them, but they didn't know where to get the supplies. And, I think in this digital world, a lot of millennials don't necessarily want to like schlep themselves off to Michael's or Joann's all the time. And so they were like, where do we get this stuff? Like, I want to do calligraphy, but what pen do I need? What thing do I need? And so we made kits. And so we would put everything in a box that you needed to do a project. We would send it to you once a month. And initially it was awesome. And we had a ton of traction. And we were packing the boxes in our office. And then like all the women wanted to customize they wanted like the home decor projects. And some women wanted like the baking projects. And so we were a team of like 12. And we were like, how are we going to do this? And ultimately, like, it just became really cost prohibitive to like create that amount of infrastructure to customize all kinds of kits every month. And ultimately, when you're getting something every month, it's already enough to get a thing in the mail. But when you're getting a kit, you're getting like 20 things in one. And so you're picking and packing and like packaging. And if it's food related, it has to be in a food safe kitchen. So it was just like really tough. And so we shifted gears from that as well. And these things came back around. Like ultimately, a couple of years later, Target called us and was like, hey, what if we actually took this mainstream and we sold your kits? And so that, like, they showed us what the types of inventory we would need to have were, and we were like, that makes more sense for us on the margin level and the profit level. So we did do that. But it's funny how sometimes you'll even shut down an idea and it'll come back later because you're sort of known for it. And so I just think like never truly give up on things. Like you have to iterate and quickly and use data to iterate quickly. But I think ultimately the direction we were heading was correct. We just needed to do it in a different way, if that makes sense.
Sure. And what was the biggest surprise in terms of forming your own company?
I mean, being just go into the female thing real fast. Like I was 25. I had never started a company before, and I was raising money for an idea that a lot of traditional venture capitalists probably didn't understand. When I talked to them about the problem I was trying to solve, they would tell me that they needed to go ask their daughter about it or their wife about it, and they'll get back to me. And it was really frustrating. And I already, when you're raising a seed round or a Series A, you're still kind of fumbling around with your pitch and like what you're doing, and you're just now getting traction and data. So the idea and the person and the team matters a lot. And so luckily, we found the right investors who took the right bets on us, but it was very tough in the beginning, and I think even now, there are times when I've had 2 children now. When I was pregnant with my first, we needed to raise another round of funding, and I got a lot of advice from my board that it was probably not the right time to go raise, which was surprising to me because I was ready to go. And they said like there's just a lot of bias, and it'd be better if we like bridged the company and maybe you raised right after you had the baby. So I did, and that it kind of stunk because I didn't really get that like a real maternity leave because I was like, I'm not going to take 3 months and not make sure my company is solvent. And so there had been a lot of those types of moments, just in like honesty, because we're a small group with a camera. But but like there's been a lot of hard moments, and we're trying to fix this problem in Silicon Valley, but it's definitely hard. And I like look at people like Marissa and others who have done this and who are kind of like the guiding light. But I think even in my generation, we're going to have to be the guiding light for even more women. So the struggle is real.
Well, since you opened up the women's issue, obviously Brit & Co. gets to influence lots of women's lives. And I think that must be one of the more gratifying parts of all of your accomplishments. And I'm wondering if you can share some stories that have really touched you about how Brit & Co. has influenced some of the members of the community.
Yeah. So what's become cool about what we've done and what we've learned over the years, so what initially started as very like DIY centric, and we are known for crafting a creative life and all these things, like we've sort of become more of like the how-to guide for women in their 20s and 30s in general. Like last month we threw a cryptocurrency event. Sounds like you guys are gonna have one here too. But teaching women how to invest in cryptocurrency, what it even means. With our online classes, like I said, we're teaching coding. We're about to do some classes around like how to buy a house, how to like buy a car, like all these different things that women just literally don't necessarily know how to do. And so the thing that's most rewarding for me is that I get a ton of email and social media tweets and things like that from women who have literally like found Brit & Co. randomly. Maybe they've clicked on a link on Pinterest or Facebook or something, started kind of reading the content, got a little bit inspired to just try something. Maybe they took a class. And there have literally been these women who have been like working in accounting who were like, why am I doing this? They quit their job. They took this calligraphy class. They decided to open a calligraphy workshop. They like letter all the time on Instagram and have like hundreds of thousands of followers. And I'm like, that's so crazy that like we were a platform that enabled them to do that and to find their calling. And I think that's what it's all about. It's just sort of like, how do you enable women to do the things that they love to do and give them the skills and give them, the community to help them do that, and the motivation. And so that's been really exciting. And then on the flip side, on the like DIY front, like I've gotten notes from some women this one woman had leukemia, and she was, often bedridden and often in hospitals, and it really sucks to like be in a hospital all the time and have nothing to do. But she would like do our projects, and she would take classes, and she would, it gave her this creative outlet that kind of made her happier. There's been a lot of actually neuroscience studies around like how creativity impacts the brain. It's why adult coloring books, or as I like to call them, coloring books for adults, because otherwise it's awkward. It's why that became like a really big trend. There's like the state of flow, the meditative qualities of doing things with your hands that actually create better moods, solve anxiety, etc. So those are like different types of things that I'm really proud of, and those are the things that keep me going, is just seeing all these other women helping themselves.
I think a lot of times inspiration comes from challenges, and I think one of the things I admire about you is you're always trying to challenge yourself, right? Be back to your college story of how do you finish as fast as you can finish. And one of the things you started recently was the Give It a Week challenge. And so I guess I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about that, some of the challenges you've already done and things you've already learned.
Yeah. So this was funny because, during New Year's time, everyone's like, what's your New Year's resolution? And there's like, you can maybe have like one big one, right? Maybe like 3. But I feel like it's like a big deal because you need to have a big meaty resolution, and a lot of people obviously end up falling off the bandwagon like second month, third month in. So I was like, you know what would be more interesting is like to take a Silicon Valley term to like rapid prototype your life, and actually just choose a weekly resolution and then do a different weekly resolution every week of the year. And I wanted to choose things that would drive me from a personal growth standpoint, that would be really uncomfortable for me, and I would use social media to share it so that people could hold me accountable. And I'm a very competitive person, so a lot of people were like, "Are you sure you want to do like the whole year? That seems like a lot every week. Do you want to take a week off once a month?" I was like, "No, the whole year. I must do it." So so I started it. I started like 3 weeks late because January had rolled by, but I've done things like no makeup week, which was really awesome, by the way, except for when I had to be like on camera at public events or things. But I've done the keto diet. I have a lot of feedback on that if you're interested. I've learned to sing for a week, which was really cool because some like Broadway stars trained me over FaceTime. And there's some apps. Vanito is a really cool app if you want to download it that literally uses voice detection to understand if you're singing the right tones and the right notes. This week I am volunteering every day for the week. So again, like things that just are challenge. Like I wouldn't think I could do for a whole month or a whole year, but for 7 days it seems totally like feasible. And I'm only like 8 or 9 weeks in, but already it's been so cool to sort of see how I've been pushed out of my comfort zone and start to adapt new habits and new patterns. Like I did a 5 a.m. wake up every day last week, which you don't sleep that much. I want to talk to you about that because that was hard. But real, I like 5
But
a.m.
I'm
is
a
a
night
little early.
owl, not a morning person. So like,
Yeah, but you also like a requirement. I need like a good 6 or 7 hours. But anyways, so I'm actually waking up earlier now, even after that week. So it's just been it's been really cool. And then all these women are like starting to join me in doing these challenges too, which is cool. There's a number of women out there still on the keto diet, but it's sort of like there's a community that exists that wants to participate in their own way and on their own time. And again, like 7 days, might as well try, see what happens. And maybe you'll keep going after that and maybe not, and you'll try something new. So it's been fun.
So have you already picked the upcoming challenges, or have you actually like figured out what the schedule is? Can you give us some insight into
Well,
what's
some
coming
people
next?
are like challenging me, like they're suggesting things, which has been cool. And then I travel a lot. So a lot of it has to do with like, is it feasible to do this while I'm traveling? But I definitely want to do like a fitness challenge soon. So I'm thinking like a 5K a day type of thing, or yoga every day. I want to do a maybe later in the year, but I want to like force myself to try to be funny. Like I want to take comedy classes and then be forced to like have to do a stand-up show. If you guys want me to come back and do it, I will. Look, you're already laughing. So there's like those types of creative challenges. I would like to like code something in a week. Like I'm trying to sort of pick all kinds of different aspects of my life and what I want to do. As like the volunteering has been really cool, and like random acts of kindness for a week seems like a fun thing to do. So if you have challenge ideas for me, please send them to me on Instagram. I'm like usually 2 weeks out. I haven't planned like the whole year, but you can challenge me.
I think one of the cool parts of that story is that the community is beginning to challenge you.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing I know I'm curious about, and I imagine the room is too, is it's easy online to build a following. It's hard to build a community, especially when it's one person engaging with such a large group. And you seem to have really mastered that. So what are some of your insights around how do you build a community using social media? How do you find the right level of engagement?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not that novel, but I mean, I spend a chunk of my day just responding to people as much as I can. I think it really matters to people that, if they send you a direct message on Instagram, you're messaging them back. And, you might have never met in real life, but I have like all these friends on Instagram now who we like message back and forth, and they're sending me their updates on their like keto challenge, and I'm cheering them on. And so I think it's true that like a lot of these big celebrity figures, and I get it when you're like Selena Gomez and you have 50 million Instagram followers, you can't message everyone back, but to message at least some of them back, and I think to really just jump in and be a human and have a conversation with people is key. That's what look at the YouTube community, like back when I worked in that group, like the YouTube creators that were the most successful were the ones jumping into the comments and replying back and forth to everybody. And so it's human nature, really, is at the end of the day. It's not a one-to-many thing. It's a two-way thing. And I think there are some like tools on social media, like Facebook groups and things like that have helped. But ultimately, it's all about that engagement back and forth.
And how do you see Brit & Co. evolving? What's next? How do you see it evolving and growing over the next few years?
I think we sort of like laid a lot of groundwork for the types of things we're doing. We essentially have like 4 businesses within one, which is a lot. So it's sort of just like how do we keep tying these things together? I'm really excited about what's happening with the experiential business. I feel like a lot of people are just like want to throw their phones in the trash can and just go be in like a real community with people. And like clearly here, you guys are proof of this. You want to touch and feel. You want to come learn how to do things and make things in person. And so we can weave in aspects of the learning business and the content business, and like maybe there's some merch there too, and start to think about what are these real life experiences that we can offer for women that are multifaceted around helping them learn how to do things, getting inspired, and just being connected together. And then also, last year we took on a couple of new investors. So Disney was one, and Verizon was another. And that's been really cool because, for Disney at least, I literally had to do 50 meetings in 5 days once they invested. So it was Bob Iger, the CEO, his direct reports, and their direct reports. And I literally now know everything about everything at Disney, including like what's happening with Star Wars, like the next Pixar film, what the intricacies of how they create the new experiences at the parks and resorts. And so it's been really cool because that brand, of course, I'm sure we're like all obsessed with it. We grew up with it, but they've evolved to be relevant to adults as well, and it's so multifaceted. In similar ways as Brit & Co., they have merch, they have media, they have experiences, obviously at a different scale, but I'm excited for all the different ways we can think about how to help them, actually, because if you think of Disney, they reach children really well, and they reach moms of those children really well, but they're kind of missing that middle audience, and they told me they largely care about females. And so I'm excited to see where that could go. And we both have kind of a similar brand mission around creativity and imagination and sort of discovering the impossible. So we'll see what happens there.
And I think one reason that Disney is such a point of fascination for many of us is because it's such a creative business and brand. And, Brit & Co. takes technology and creativity, blends it together.
Yep.
Here in Silicon Valley, I think a lot of us are really comfortable with the technology side of it. What are some of your observations and words of advice in terms of building a creative career that's really built on creativity or tapping into that creative side?
Well, I think it's interesting that, again, the reason I started this business was because a lot of adult women told me they did not believe they were creative. We later went on to do an actual survey around this, and 77% of respondents said they weren't creative. And that killed me, like, inside. But it's also the opportunity, if you're thinking in business terms, because that's the change, right? Like, how do you change people's minds to thinking they're creative people? And in my mind, like, that's every day of your life you're doing something creative. From like, a lot of us wear makeup, even if you're on no makeup week for Give It a Week, but like it's gradients and shadows and lining and all kinds of coloring in the lines and all kinds of things. And we're cooking probably during the day, and we're decorating our walls in our office or at our homes. And those are all like micro creative decisions we're making. And so I do think that we all have the capacity inside of us. And I've recently started working with the neuroscience group at Stanford actually to understand how creativity and the brain actually work. There's not a ton of research about the brain in general, but they have been running this 5-year study, and they're like, I think 3 or 4 years in, where they've learned that it actually is not an innate trait where you're creative or you're not. It is more like a muscle. So if you take one thing and you practice it on a regular cadence, you will get much better at it. And that just goes to prove that like all of us have the opportunity to be a singer or a comedian or a painter or whatever it is. And if that fulfills you in life, then like why not do that, right? And figure out how to make a business around it. And does that make you happier than your day job right now? There's so many tools at your disposal now with the way technology has grown, and you can open up your own shop, your own digital e-commerce store. You can create large audiences on social media, and so I'm starting to see that with a lot of our community at Brit & Co. I think millennials in general, 1 in 5 have some sort of side hustle. So they're like moonlighting as doing like a creative business. And my hypothesis is that's because that's the thing they actually want to be doing in life, and they're just trying to like ramp it up before they can switch their jobs. But I think that's the other thing that's interesting is with AI, and if you believe like some of the things that everyone in Silicon Valley talks about, like the creative jobs are going to be the ones that aren't replicable, right? Like those are the things where we need human beings the most. And so I see a lot of opportunity in that as an industry in the future, even though it will largely be supported by technology in different ways.
I want to switch gears a little bit. You mentioned earlier that while you've been running Brit & Co., you've also become a parent of 2 wonderful little boys. And I guess I want to ask a bit about the parenting endeavor. And I'm going to ask the question 2 ways. One is, how does parenting fuel your creativity and your entrepreneurial endeavors? And how does your creative and entrepreneurial endeavor feed your parenting?
So the funny story is, Marissa and I had another breakfast that when I think I was pregnant, and you had 1 at the time, and you were telling me what it's like to sort of be a working mom, have the kid, all this stuff. And I remember you saying something that stuck with me, which was, you have to talk out loud and like say, mommy's opening the dishwasher, because that's how they're learning words. And so if you're the type of parent who like doesn't talk about like the things you're doing around the house, your kid's not getting as much verbal intelligence from an early age. And I was like, that's crazy. And so
you just walk around talking to yourself.
Yeah.
And later you're like, why am I saying I'm walking up the stairs? Because like, there's no one here.
I know. Yeah. And I know some people naturally talk to themselves, but I wasn't one of them. And so we had this baby, and we like put him in his little boppy pillow thing, and I'd be like, and now mommy's opening the refrigerator. And like, I felt so weird. And then you get to the phase where you're like reading books and singing songs. And I'm like, am I even a good singer of like children's book? I don't know. And when I read the book about the train, like, and I have boys, right? So I'm like, and my husband, like men, by the way, are like built to have good boy sounds. So like, vroom, vroom, they're like, and I'm like, I've never said that in my life. Like, I don't know. But you like have to like play this role now because you're the storyteller. And so it was weird for a few months, and I was getting used to it. But now like I've got all this, I've got all the sounds down. I can do like the trains, the like airplanes, and I sing and I talk to myself. So I'm like an A+ parent. Thanks, Marissa.
And that's and tell us a little bit about how your business, I think, feeds some of that too. Yeah.
It's funny because as I said, I didn't have children when I started this. And I always joked like with my early investors, like, haha, and then one day I'll have kids, and like we'll have a community of moms at Brit & Co. And then it randomly just happened faster than I thought. And so it's true. Like now we have 48% of our audience are moms, largely young moms. And having been a mom and going through the prenatal phase and everything, like I don't think there's a lot of like really great content experiences for learning how to be a mom online. And so I think that's a big opportunity for us, in the how-to world. Like, how do you do all these things? Like, what type of gear do you need? Like, what's the best this and that? And building communities around that for women. And I've always thought like there should be an app too that connects you with like-minded moms, not just moms of the same age kids, but like same geography, same interests, like all. So I have all kinds of grand ideas for where that could go, but it's cool to know that Brit & Co. has kind of become an overarching umbrella for the things that I actually care about in my life, and I just want to like solve some of these problems for other women too, because I experienced them myself. So that's been cool. But I'm not in the older kid phase yet. I don't know what happens like once you go to kindergarten. You're in that
Well, not quite. We're not quite in kindergarten. We're getting there.
working on it.
So, and on the women's side, I want to back up a bit because you decided to focus on women as a demographic. I want to learn a little bit about why you focused on that. It is interesting, by the way, because like for those that are watching, I guess we probably have about 10 men. And I was saying to Britt beforehand, the men who show up tonight, we will spare in the coming revolution.
Yes. You can all dance.
But so thank you for coming tonight. But I think there's obviously a lot of challenges. I mean, like the women's demographic is a really interesting one to focus on, and there's a lot, there's a lot of purchasing power and decision-making power, and obviously the power of parenting and the fact that they're raising the next generation. But there's also challenges because women are really busy. I'm sure that when it comes to making media for them, you have to think about like how much time it takes. Is it, is it consumed serially, or how is it actually really, going to be incorporated and used? And so, what are some of those key challenges when you're focusing on women, especially busy women?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, to see like data analytics of like time spent throughout the day, because it's certainly during commute times, which I feel like are women's sacred hours of like their only solo time in their life. It's like in the shower and in the car, or like your time. So that's cool that they're at least coming to our site then. But it's like if we think about, okay, we're going to do a new content series or Instagram stories or whatever, like how do we plan them around the right times of day when we know women are paying attention? And then I think there's like other things just from a product experience, like women are much more visual. It's why sites like Pinterest, cater more towards women than men. And Brit & Co.'s always taken that, cue, and we've made everything very visual. We think about color a lot too. And this is another thing that like I remember being in product reviews with you and you're like, it's not the right shade of blue, like probably be 3 shades darker. And it's because there's actual data around this stuff, around like what colors like ignite people to click or to take an action or to do types of things. And so we actually study a lot of that stuff in-house as well. And then I think there's just sort of like the trends about women, like that we get to understand because we have all this data about what people are pinning and sharing and commenting on and reading and watching. And so, and because of what we do, we're largely an evergreen content site. We're not writing about the hard news every single day. So a lot of our content recirculates every year. And we start to understand that, for instance, like women start looking for Halloween costumes in July. I don't know who those women are, but you, right? Yeah. Like you got your Halloween game strong in July. So we start to learn things like that. And we can then also start predicting new types of trends, like when like rainbow food was a thing briefly, and rainbow hair and like rainbow everything. And so we start to see those trends before a lot of the mainstream retailers and product companies and things like that, because we're literally creating hundreds of pieces of content every day and getting feedback on it. So that's been really cool, just because I feel like we have so many insights on where women are going, what they care about right now. Obviously, like female empowerment is huge for women, and the Time's Up and Me Too, and like women standing up for each other. And so I think that's really cool. And I think, a lot of the traditional companies, whether they're CPG brands or retailers or even traditional media companies, don't keep a lot of data. They like don't have direct connections with their consumers. They make a product, they put it in a retail store and wholesale it into them, and the retailer gets the data. Like the company that makes the products don't have any data. So like if you're Campbell's Soup, you're like, I don't know what things coming out next, like what people are buying. They get some of the trends. So we are really interested in owning that data, creating that data, and I think the companies of the future will use that to reinforce their decision making. You know, when we create a product line for Target or whomever, like we're factoring the color palettes that women are caring about and probably will care about in the next 12 months because millennial pink is over and now it's all lilac or whatever it is. It's true. But so that's been cool. I feel like I sort of, that book, The Female Brain, I feel like I'm trying to start to understand it a little bit more.
I could ask Britt questions all night, but I just want to give a heads up that we will open this up to audience questions in about 5 minutes. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and move to the microphones. We're going to have some microphones here set up in the back of the room. I want to change gears maybe a little bit because we've talked a lot now about the women's side of things. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you're doing at Brit & Co. that I really love is you're taking topics that aren't necessarily feminine, like blockchain and cryptocurrency, and making them more accessible to women, or at least not wanting women to be intimidated by that. So tell us a little bit. We've touched on it earlier, the cryptocurrency and blockchain event that you held. Why did you do it?
Yeah.
How do you think it went? What did women take away from it?
Yeah. So you'll probably come to learn this soon if you come to next month's event. Got you. But there are only 4% of female investors in any type of cryptocurrency. It's really crazy. Because if you believe, and I know we won't get into details about all the details of crypto, but like, this is potentially going to be rebuilding the financial system for like the next generation. And it is likely one of the biggest technological disruptors of our time. And the fact that women don't have a part in building that next financial system just sucks, right? So I saw that stat and I tweeted it and Instagrammed it, and I didn't think much of it. And then I got flooded with comments from women saying, like, I've been dying to learn more and invest. I just don't know anything about it. And if I knew more about it, I'd feel more comfortable investing in it. And so it struck me that, like, the only blocker here is education. Like, they just need to know what this all means and to, like, have it translated for them. And so in, like, 2 weeks' time, we were like, okay, we'll just put on this little event and, like, we were sold out within an hour. So we're like, okay, I guess we should move venues. Sold out. And then the day, like it was crazy how much interest there was for learning about cryptocurrency and blockchain. And so ultimately, we had to live stream it because we couldn't find a big enough space for everybody. And we had women all over the world coming in, like tens of thousands of women on the live stream, like 59-minute average watch time, like very engaged women asking questions. And it was really cool. And I think that ironically that day it had hit like a low, like one of the biggest all-time lows of 2018 so far, which would have been a good time to buy if they were to buy, but I couldn't give financial advice, so I didn't say that. But it's cool because we're starting to see more and more traction with it. Other organizations are hosting events around it. There are a lot of media companies creating more and more content around it. We're going to be launching a class about an online class that people can take to like go deeper in an hour about all of it. So I'm excited that it sounds like the tide is shifting and that women are more interested in getting involved. And even if that means spending $10 or $50 or $100, like learning how it works. And that's the most important thing, so that you aren't excluded from the conversation. When a bunch of the guys are talking about their crypto investments, like you're able to just come in and talk the same game. So I'm excited about that.
Okay, speaking of inclusion, we want to make sure we include the audience for our Q&A, and it looks like we have some people at the microphone, so we're going to go ahead and switch to audience Q&A.
Hi there, thanks so much. This has been awesome and great work on the crypto talks. This is just like super important. What you said about raising while you were pregnant made me very angry, and I was just wondering, what do you hope of the men in Silicon Valley?
Yeah. Well, yesterday there was this big initiative called Founders for Change. I don't know if you guys saw it, foundersforchange.org, but over 400 founders and CEOs signed a petition that basically said, we are committed to having diverse workforces and executive teams and looking at the diversity of the venture firms that we're raising from when we get our next investment, and the portfolio companies of those firms as well. So it's, it's not great. It's getting a little better. I think the Time's Up Me Too thing is for real. Like, that's not going away anytime soon. I know some of the women who are leading those initiatives, and it's like really hardcore. And I do think, I'm interested in your opinion, but I feel like Silicon Valley is having a wake-up call here, and people are realizing they should have, Uber should have a female executive on its board and on its executive team, and all these different companies should have women sitting at the table. I've been excited to see the board list, which Sukhinder Singh, another former Googler, has launched, which is all about helping get women on boards. I mean, if you think about raising venture capital and hiring female executives, it's actually even worse at the board level, and those people are kind of like the executive team's bosses in different ways. So I'm excited for the change. It's not happening as quickly as I would like. But again, that's why I said I feel like I didn't expect this to be like my generation having to lead through this, but I do feel like it is. And so when I look at kind of the 15-year-old girls of today, I hope that their future is such that they won't have to worry about being a woman when they're raising venture capital. And actually, back to crypto randomly, I know ICOs are controversial. It's a way to raise money through the cryptocurrency, but it's actually a blind way to raise money because essentially people are seeing a white paper of what the thing it is that you want to raise for. There's no face behind it. You don't have to go out and pitch in person, all these different things. It's like people like the idea, cool, they want to invest. And that's how it should be. So I'm excited to see how some of these technologies actually make it easier as well.
Thanks.
My name is Zach. I flew in from Austin, Texas. So Hookem, thank you.
Thank you. You're one of the two people.
I was going to say, as far as it goes, we're bringing on a female co-founder, and there's not many resources that I've found out there that help me identify the right people for it other than LinkedIn. Do you have any sort of network advice that I can go and find someone to bring onto the team? Like, where could you find awesome people other than in this room, which is like all the awesome people here? So, hey-o. But
meet all the women here. It's a good question. I think there are some other, Levo League and is a good platform for career-minded women. I think there are some large Facebook groups you should join as a man and be it's actually shooting fish in a barrel, right? You're like, cool, I want to hire a woman. Anybody? And then I think networking with some of your female friends who are executives, who know a lot of women, who probably be excited about that, or I think Twitter is the new cold call. So I get tweets all the time and I respond to them, like I said. And I feel like if you were to tweet me and say Britt, do you have any friends who would be interested in who are talented and whether
I'll take you up on that.
Okay, great. Tweet me. Great. Well, I'll hook you up. Done. Next.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for the inspiring conversation tonight. I'm curious, Britt, as a mom of two boys, how you inspire your boys to get creative. Because I have a 5-year-old who loves Star Wars, but when I mention arts and crafts, he runs the other way.
I know.
And if you have any advice on how to engage children, especially boys, to be creative, I'd love to hear.
Yeah. I know. It's sad. I'm like, where's the girl? I was made to raise a girl. But my husband knows we're just going to keep going until it happens because it's his fault. Aren't you glad you came? Well, so this Give It a Week thing has actually been kind of fun because I've done some creative challenges, like I mentioned. And so when I did watercolor painting for the week, and the boys saw me doing this every day, they were like, I want to paint. And so I sort of, my guess is that doing these things actively in front of them makes them curious about what you're doing, and they sort of want to participate. And so we ended up painting for a lot of days that week, and I like to bake and decorate cookies and cakes and stuff a lot. And so they want to jump into that stuff too. And so I think leading by example is the first piece of advice. And then I know a lot of women who before bedtime or something like that, they'll plan a certain time of the day. So it's pretty regimented. They know like that's their creative time. Or they'll sort of like, no screens, no whatever. Like your three options are read a book, do a creative project, or like play a game, like a board game or something, like a memory game, and like make them choose from like a set of 2 or 3 things. And ultimately, hopefully, they'll choose a creative thing, at least sometimes. So try
Thank
those.
you.
Yeah.
All
And
right, we're going to
Legos.
finish up with just these last 5 audience questions.
Great.
Hi, ladies. Thanks for being here today. Britt, question for you. A lot of our content roles these days in our jobs are very creative, but in a very bootstrapped company, they want us to be both like data analyst and editor and photographer and all these other skills that we would love to learn about, but maybe we don't have the resources at our company, and we really want to focus on one thing, but we really have to have the whole kit and caboodle. What sort of outreach programs or companies like General Assembly do you recommend where we can like hone all these other skills while also trying to be as creative as we can in our roles?
There's this company called Brit & Co. that I really like.
I've heard of them. They sound wonderful.
They have classes. General Assembly is a good one. I actually encourage a lot other founders. This is something we do, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but because we have such a creative staff, and they ultimately, like, if they are a photographer or a writer, they want to learn other things. Like, they're just a creative person, and even the engineers. So once a quarter, we host a creativity day where you cannot come into the office that day. You get $50 each, and you have to go learn or do something creative with that money. So the only rule is you have to be back at 4 p.m. to show and tell whatever it is you learned or you made. And it's been really cool to see how people are exploring different types of things. Like the engineers, like someone will take a cooking class, and like one of the photographers might learn how to build furniture, and so and then a lot of them group up and do things like collaboratively. We also give an education stipend to every employee, and that could be for a conference, that could be for classes, and it's $1,000 an employee. It's not like a magical amount of money, but I do think that like you can find classes. Workshop SF is really good. I love that place. And then like you could go if you want to go into like the burbs. There's like Michael's and things like that have their crafting classes. But there are a lot of ways to learn. Masterclass, I think, is actually really interesting too. I mean, they're doing like celebrity taught classes, and I think they have a program for like $199. You get all access for the year, and they have like Annie Leibovitz teaching photography and Christina Aguilera teaching singing. I haven't taken one yet, so I can't totally recommend it, but it seems like a very interesting way to learn from the top. So I think there are digital resources and physical resources, and I would explore both. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I love this. I need a girl so bad.
I have 2 things to say. Maybe you could do Pajama Week. And another thing I wanted to say, where is the 3D printer place?
I love you. Pajama Week sounds amazing, actually. So I'm totally going to do that. And if anyone wants to join me on that challenge, you guys are all welcome to do it. The 3D printing place I was talking about, this is very sad. It shut down recently. They had to file for bankruptcy. I know. I think they're trying to spin it back up as like a B Corp or a nonprofit, so hopefully it'll come back to life. But there are a lot of libraries and schools that now have maker labs in them, and you can go and access these things for free. And then there's also a maker fair coming up. I think it's in May in San Mateo that I recommend everyone go to. It's like on the San Mateo Fairgrounds. If you've tens of thousands of people, 3D printers, laser, all the things. There are 3D printers that can make clothing now. There are 3D printers that can create things out of ceramic and wood. So I would totally go check it out just to see what the realm of possibilities are. But hopefully you'll get one in your school soon. Thank you.
And I was going to say, Britt did have this tradition of printing
Yeah.
flowers on May Day, and it's funny because I've got 2 or 3 years of the May Day flowers, and my children love to play with them.
Yeah,
They're amazing.
totally.
In fact, we call them the Brit flowers. And
Oh,
they're
you do?
When do we get more Brit flowers? And we got like the roses and the tulips, and so hopefully we'll find a way
Yeah.
to keep the May Day.
Do you have a
flower
3D
tradition
printer?
growing? Yeah, I have access to one.
You have
so
access
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Claire. I'm an experiential and a designer and a photographer. So when you mentioned the experiential world, and it just struck me, and because I feel like it's such a fascinating world and it's growing so rapidly, like from the Museum of Ice Cream, Color Factory, 29 rooms, Infinity Rooms, and so on, to all these like branded experiences. Like I personally went to your holiday brand called
Holiday
Holiday
House.
House. It was beautiful. It's basically like a mini section of all these things you created. I think you probably collaborated or worked with Oh Happy Day. And I just started this about like a year and a half ago. So fairly small. I was just wondering, like, what do you think that is going to be like, or should I, like, if I'm seeking a career in here, should I start just something on my own, or should I like work for other companies, or
Yeah,
like,
great
what's the-
question. I'm super into this. The fact of the matter is that, you know, a lot of millennials and Gen Z and Gen X, like a lot of people aren't going shopping in physical stores anymore, but 78% of millennials say they would rather buy an experience than a thing. So the question is, how do you actually turn all of these retail stores and malls and things like that into experiences? And we've played around a lot with that by giving people ways that, you know, they can interact with the experience around them and take photos and all the things you guys have probably seen, because like we do all love our Instagram accounts. But also for us, it's about like, how do you give them substance, right? So is there a cool thing you can make when you come in? Is there something you can learn from? Is there, you know, a talk or things like that? So I've also seen now like restaurants that used to be, that are like mom and pop shops, are transforming themselves with like Instagram makeovers so that they can offer like photo worthy things for people to come into, like better lighting to take pictures of their food, cool wall art, that like tiles that are, I know it sounds silly, but people are doing this. And they're seeing like huge influxes in traffic, which like says something about how like vain we all are. But and I think it's like making a big dent in their business. And there was actually recently an article in the Wall Street Journal, I think, about how businesses are starting to do this internally, like LinkedIn and others in this area are creating all Adobe, like Instagrammable wall art in their office spaces. So I think it's a huge opportunity for you as an experiential designer. I know that like when we try to hire experiential designers, it's tough. And you could go in-house, or you could have a lucrative career consulting. A lot of times if it's a long-term, if it's a restaurant or a museum of ice cream type of thing, it's gonna be around for multiple months. They need someone to come in and help do the like inception and the production work, and then they don't really need you anymore for a few more months. So it seems like consulting might actually be a good opportunity for this type of career.
All right, and we just have 2 final questions.
Are your kids interested in your company, or do they like understand it?
Understand it is questionable. They're like 3 and almost 2, so they don't understand a lot of things. They'll see me on TV and say, "Mama, TV," and then I say I'm going to work at Brit & Co. They know Brit & Co. is the place with all the candy, like, because when I have to say goodbye to my kids in the morning, I want them to think that I'm like, I wouldn't trade them for anything, but except for like a magical world, right? So like when they come, we have the candy and the snacks, and like it's colorful, and so they, I think, get that it's colorful and creative, but have no idea what I actually do. But it's more of an age thing.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Donna. I want to first congratulate you on igniting a room full of men and women here and empowering us to strengthen our creative muscle. With that, I am struggling with the how, right? You have your CEO, business, kids, and many of us, I think, like you said, so many moms. I'm a new mom. How? What are, what is the, what are maybe a couple of things that we can take, tangible things that we can take with us to give us tools to really tell us how, with the, not having space at the table, like we mentioned, wanting to integrate and incorporate and welcome women to the table more, and the time, right? So what are the tangible tools, skills that you can inspire us and share with us that we can take with us once we walk out of this room?
You should have to answer this too. So I did my 5 a.m. challenge last week, and in my early morning, I was bullet journaling, and I made a pie chart of like how I actually spend my time and like how I would like to spend my time. So I did work, kids, self, husband, and other. And that was like where friends go and things. But like half of my day is spent working, and that's traditionally like, I actually, leave the office at a reasonable time, like right at 5 p.m. every day, go home with the kids, like have dinner with my husband, but then I have to get back online to finish things up. And so it ends up being like 10 to 12 hours for the day, and of course more time with the kids on the weekend. But I just want everyone, I struggle with it too. Like it's not my perfect and ideal world, but it's the sacrifices that like I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, and like how can I make the quality of time better with my kids and my husband and myself, and not necessarily think about the quantity of time. And then I do think like there's a lot of ways that I've learned how to work smarter. I think like Sheryl Sandberg always says like ruthlessly prioritize, and it's sort of like what are the 3 things you're gonna do today, and did you do those things, and like cut everything else out. I think Shonda Rhimes also said something like, if it's not a hell yes when someone asks you to do something, then it's a no. So like, if your like friend that you sort of know like wants to go grab a drink, I don't know, whatever it is, like, and you're not like, yes, like just don't do it. Like cut that out. There are things that are more important, like your kids or your family or your work. And I try to stick by that a lot. And so, it's tough though, and I would say like I do think like keeping a healthy self is really important. Like I try to work out a lot. I try to like take enough mental time for myself, meditation, yoga, those types of things, because if you're running a family and a company, like you've got to be in the right state of mind on your own before you can help other people. Would you add anything to that?
No, I think that's a good summary. I think, or at least for me, it's family and work, and anything else on top of that is just kind of gravy.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember I had a friend about a month ago mail and say, I don't think we've had coffee in 5 years. And I was like, it's not you. Like, I haven't had coffee with anyone in 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. My son's just a little over than 5 years old. And those things are just have to go. But
right.
that you've got your priorities straight.
Yeah, totally.
So I think I get the honor of the last question. Here at Inforum, there's a tradition, which is that they always end with the same question, which is, Britt, we want to hear your 60-second idea to change the world.
No pressure. So this one actually is based on something that, not to call him out again, but my husband is working on, and that is to find a cure for depression. And as he's been working on this, they're doing a genomic study with 100,000 people to actually find the biomarkers in the brain and start to figure out what all the different types of cures are and all these things. I've, just been by the wayside, like hearing him talk about it a lot. And what struck me was that it's 1 in 4 women that have some sort of depression, anxiety, like a mental illness of some sort. And it's one in 6 men. So like, why are women more impacted by this? And it's actually getting worse the younger that these generations are. Like suicidal rates grew 32% last year with teenagers. And a lot of it has to do with the times they're spending on their phone and their devices. And the fact of the matter is we actually have no idea like how to solve this problem. We have some hypotheses, and I'm really interested in it. Not because he's working on it, but because this is the leading cause of death in the world, and when you think of the cause, it's like people are taking their own lives. People are, the Austin bomber. These people have actually a reason for what they're doing, and I think we can save a lot of people and make a lot more happiness. And so for what's my role in this, well, like I'm still figuring that out, but I know that Brit & Co reaches a large amount of women, and like one of the first steps is probably to reduce the stigma around talking about this, because it's 1 in 4 women. It's more common than we all think. It's 1 in 4 of all of you in here, and it should be okay and normalized to talk about. And so one of the things I want to do to help change the world is to sort of join on this journey and to play a role however I can in helping cure depression and anxiety and all these other diseases in women.
That's a really beautiful and important idea.
Thank you.
So it has been a real honor and pleasure tonight. It's been wonderful to have you here at Inforum at the Commonwealth Club. So let's give Brit a big round of applause for the conversation tonight.
Thank you, Marissa.
And I just want to say to our audience, happy Women's History Month, and thank you all so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, guys.